Golden Bachelorette Joan Vassos addresses nasty comment made by Mel Owens' lady. October 15th, 2025. Hello everyone, welcome to my channel Bachelor Nation News. Fans. Mel Owens isn't the only one from the second Golden Bachelor season to make insensitive comments. He had to apologize after saying he didn't want to date anyone over the age of 60. The show ignored his requirements and cast older women in their 60s and even 70s. Nicole Kate Briscoe is a 64-year-old yoga instructor from Miami, Florida. She's also the villain of Mel's season. She recently made a shocking admission and a nasty comment about the women from Jerry Turner's season. Keep reading to find out how Joan Vassos responded to the unexpected diss. Golden Bachelorette contestant admits she's there for fame. Mel Owens, 66, is a divorced former professional football player looking for love on reality TV. After his career in the NFL ended, he turned to law. His first wife divorced him after nearly 20 years of marriage. In a controversial podcast before the season started, he said he was only interested in fit women under the age of 60. Nicole Kate Briscoe is definitely fit, but she's not on the Golden Bachelor for love. At least one contestant on every season comes under fire for not being on the show for the right reasons. Instead of denying the accusation, Nicole readily admitted it to one of her co-stars. "I'm dating America. I'm dating everybody watching and not watching. That gives you exposure like you've never had." It gets worse. Her nasty comment about the season 1 women. Nicole Kate Briscoe encouraged the other ladies to think about their prospects of joining Bravo's Real Housewives franchise. She said that ABC should take advantage of the beautiful women from Mel's season. "I'm sorry, but the last cast, they weren't so great looking," she said about the women from Jerry's season. Joan Vassos addresses nasty comment made by Mel Owens' lady. Joan Vassos was one of the women on the first Golden Bachelor season. She left early to deal with a family emergency, but ABC gave her a second chance as the first Golden Bachelorette lead. She got engaged to Chalk Chapel in the season finale. The couple lives in separate states but plans to marry in the next few years. Their arrangement isn't traditional, but it works for them. She was part of the Almost Famous podcast recap episode. Ben Higgins asked Joan for her reaction to Nicole's mean comment. Joan said she was so shocked by the comment that she had to stop the video and rewind it to hear it again. She couldn't believe anyone would say something like that. Joan Vassos said she doesn't think Nicole is in touch with reality. She had more to say, but the clip cut off there. Fans will have to listen to the podcast episode to drop. Tell us in the comments how you reacted to Nicole's
stood
diss.
in front of the mirror in her dressing room, smoothing the shimmering gold gown she had chosen for tonight's gala. The sequins caught the light, throwing tiny golden flecks around the room like fireflies. She took a slow breath. This night was special. It was the annual Golden Bachelorette Gala, where prominent socialites, philanthropists, and a select group of suitors gathered to watch, mingle, and perhaps even propose. For Joan, it was more than a spectacle. It was her moment to reclaim her narrative. In the past weeks, rumors had swirled, tensions had arisen, and one carved insult in particular had left a bitter sting. A nasty comment made by Mel Owens' lady, Simone. Mel Owens was one of the more eligible bachelors participating. Joan had heard the comment via gossip, although not directly from her lips, but it was damaging enough to require a response. It had been at a private dinner, with only a few people in attendance, when Simone smoothed her wine glass in her hand and, with a wry tilt of her lips, asked, "Joan does dress elegantly, doesn't she? But tell me, how many of her suitors are there really who stay past the first cocktail hour?" The tone had been mocking, insinuating that Joan had many suitors initially, but few of substance, few who genuinely desired her. Simone's voice had been soft, but sharp, and though she phrased it as a question, the implication was cutting. Joan was superficial, fleetingly admired, but lonely in substance. The room had tittered. Mel, seated nearby, had looked uncomfortable, but had not intervened. Joan had felt her cheeks burn. She did not tremble, but inside, hurt lanced through her pride. She forced a polite smile, shifted the conversation, and kept composure that night, but she vowed to confront it on her terms. Soon the time came. A hush fell over the grand ballroom as guests streamed in through the gilded doors. Chandeliers bloomed overhead. The scent of white roses and polished wood infused the air. Joan stepped onto the red carpet, cameras flashing. She walked deliberately, head held high, gold gown trailing like starlight. She had arranged for a brief speech, not long, but enough to address that comment. She intended not to attack Simone publicly, that would lower her, but to elevate her own dignity, reclaim her self-worth, and let society see the strength beneath the sequins. Inside, her heart pounded. Could she really do it? She adjusted a single curl of her hair, then released it. The doors opened, applause greeted her, and she entered the ballroom. She glimpsed Mel Owens across the room. He looked sharp in a tuxedo, handsome, tall. Beside him, Simone in a sleek silver dress, her posture perfect, her eyes measuring. Joan felt tension in her spine. Joan moved through greeting lines, shaking hands, giving embraces, patting backs. The room buzzed. Look at her glow. She's radiant tonight. People made soft murmurs. A few whispered, has she decided who she'll choose? Others speculated, she might pick someone unexpected. As the evening progressed, the hostess announced, now Mistress of the Gala will speak. Joan was escorted to the stage, flashlight beams following her steps. The chatter quieted. All turned to her. She stood behind the clear acrylic lectern. Her voice was calm, but resonant. Good evening, dear friends, guests, and honored participants. Thank you all for being here tonight. I feel the warmth of your support, the sparkle in your eyes. We come together tonight not only to witness love's possibilities, but to celebrate dignity, respect, and sincerity. She paused. Her heart hammered. She could see Simone's face flick at the edges of her peripheral vision, but Joan continued. I wish to share a brief thought. Recently, in a private gathering, someone asked, how many of Joan's admirers last passed the first toast? Phrased as a question, yes, but implying much more. I do not deny that charm and appearance open doors. Yes, I have had many admirers, many who told me flattering things, but lasting connection? That is harder. I will not dignify the insinuation that I'm a fleeting fancy, a spark admired for a moment and left behind, because in this life I will not settle for fleeting. I will not hide behind spectacle while lacking substance. I will not pretend that admiration is enough. So, if someone wishes to know how many remain beyond the first cocktail hour, I answer, only those who are worthy, those whose interest is grounded in depth, honesty, loyalty, because it is not the count that matters, but the quality. A hush, then applause, polite, growing stronger. Some stood, many eyes glistened. She smiled, nodded, and stepped from the podium. Throughout the rest of the evening, subtle but firm, her posture, her words, her acceptance of compliments all reaffirmed that she would not be diminished. Backstage, Joan exhaled. Her social secretary, Margot, embraced her, eyes bright. Oh, Joan, that was perfect. Joan managed a shaky laugh. It felt like walking a tightrope, but I meant every word. Moments later, Mel Owens appeared. He looked sharp. He looked serious, almost pained. Joan, may I speak with you? She nodded. He motioned her aside, near a velvet-draped wall. Simone was nearby, but did not intervene yet. Mel's voice was low. I wanted to apologize. For her, for me. Simone's remark was unkind. I should have prevented it. I don't think she meant to humiliate you, but I also won't excuse her. Joan's chest tightened. This was what she had partly hoped for, acknowledgement, but she would not be subsumed by his apology alone. "Thank you, Mel," she said gently, but firmly. "It means something that you say this, but apologies are not enough unless followed by respect. I hope from now on you will, yourself, be a defender of dignity, for me, for anyone." Mel nodded slowly. "I will. Truly." Meanwhile, Simone watched from a distance. Later, approaching Joan in a quieter corner, she offered a measured greeting. "Miss Vassos, that speech was quite something." Joan replied with grace, "Thank you. I believe we all deserve words spoken with kindness and integrity." Simone paused, and then said quietly, "If I offended, I regret it." The words were clipped, but sincere. Joan inclined her head. "I accept regret. May we move forward with mutual respect?" Simone nodded and withdrew. Their dynamic was now irreversibly altered, not in enmity, perhaps, but in recognition that Joan would no longer be a passive target. That night, alone in her suite room, Joan sat by the window. The city lights gleamed like distant stars. She ran her fingers over the fabric of her gown. She allowed tears then, not of shame, but release. She thought of all the nights she had brushed rumors aside, and the whispers that she was shallow, social, a trophy rather than a partner. She had learned to armor herself, but the comment had cracked a sliver of that armor. Now, though, she felt stronger, because she had responded not just with a retort, but with a reclamation. She had refused to be diminished. The power had shifted. Hers now. She whispered to the darkness, "I own my story. I own my value." In the days following the gala, society magazines buzzed. Headlines ran, "Golden Bachelorette's bold speech. Joan stands tall. Mel Owens admits. Apology issued. Simone and Joan, a new chapter?" Some articles praised Joan's eloquence. Others attempted gossip versions. Did Mel truly mean it? Was Simone merely humoring? Joan, graceful, gave one televised interview. She was asked about Simone's remark. She answered with poise, "I believe words carry weight. We all must be mindful. I do not wish to continue hostility. I wish for mutual understanding, but clarity. I will not accept praise that dims dignity." That answer, refusing to shy away, refusing to inflame unnecessarily, became widely admired. Among her suitors, those who remained became more steadfast. One, a gentle economist named David Trent, took her hand in private and said, "I admire you not just for tonight's words, but for all the nights you suffered quietly and still showed up in light." Another, a poet named Javier Ruiz, gave her a single red rose with a note, "Your strength is the gold that outlasts fleeting admiration." Many suitors she had before disappeared quietly. They were not the ones meant to stay.
The morning
Publicly
sun
and
streamed through sheer curtains, painting golden ribbons across Joan's bedroom. She turned in bed, the silk sheets soft against her skin. David lay beside her, reading quietly. Their marriage had been peaceful, deeply companionate, full of quiet laughter and mutual admiration. But peace in Joan's life rarely stayed untested for long. A notification buzzed on her phone, hundreds of messages from social media. She frowned. "What's going on?" she murmured. David glanced over. "Probably another magazine feature. They love you, you know." Joan smiled faintly, but opened the news link. Her heart dropped. Headline: Simone Owens spotted leaving Mel's home, alone. Sources say trouble in paradise. Beneath it, another link: Simone speaks out. I regret ever trusting Joan Vassos. Joan froze. What? She clicked, breath held. The article quoted Simone from a podcast appearance. Everyone praises Joan.
But what they don't see is how she uses forgiveness as a form of power. She's not the saint people think. I learned that the hard way. David looked up from his book. She said that? After everything? Joan swallowed. A familiar ache flared, betrayal's sting, that blend of confusion and disbelief. She whispered, I thought we moved on. She even sent us a wedding gift. David reached for her hand. People reveal themselves again and again, love. Maybe she's hurting. But Joan's mind was already racing. The comment wasn't just gossip. It could reignite old narratives, cast her back into the line of fire. She had spent years rebuilding dignity, only for someone from the past to reopen old wounds. She stood, walked to the window, staring at the blooming magnolias outside. No, she said finally. Not again. I will not let this define me. Not this time. That afternoon, her phone rang. It was Good Morning America. The producer's voice was smooth, but direct. Joan, the public is talking about Simone's remarks. Would you consider coming on our Friday episode to share your perspective? Joan hesitated. You mean respond? Exactly. The people trust you, Joan. They'd like to hear your side. David, overhearing, raised an eyebrow. You don't have to explain yourself to anyone, Joan. But Joan knew this wasn't only about defending herself. It was about shaping the conversation. She had learned long ago, silence lets lies breathe. She replied, I'll come, but I'm not fighting. I'm clarifying. Friday morning arrived. Joan's stylist zipped her into a cream suit, elegant, timeless. Her hair glowed under studio lights. The anchor smiled warmly. Joan, thank you for joining us. You have been the picture of grace through public ups and downs. Recently, Mel Owens made comments implying your forgiveness was manipulative. What do you say to that? Joan inhaled slowly, eyes steady. I think when someone sees kindness as manipulation, it often reveals how deeply they misunderstand kindness. I forgave Simone because I wanted peace, not because I wanted power. Forgiveness is freedom, not control. The audience murmured approvingly. She continued, voice resonant. Life in the spotlight teaches you one thing. Not everyone clapping is clapping for you. But I'll still choose grace because bitterness never beautifies the soul. By the end, applause filled the studio. Her message went viral online. Clips titled, Joan Vassos breaks silence, forgiveness is freedom, flooded social media. But one person wasn't clapping, Simone. Across town, Simone sat in her dressing room, mascara streaked down her cheeks. She had thought the podcast comment would give her closure, make her feel empowered. Instead, it backfired. Tabloids painted her as jealous and unstable. She replayed Joan's interview, tears spilling. She always wins, she whispered bitterly. Mel entered quietly. They were no longer married. They'd separated months ago. But concern softened his voice. Simone, this isn't about winning. You made a mistake, again. Maybe it's time you talk to her. Truly talk. Simone scoffed. You think she'd even answer my call? Mel shrugged. She always had a heart bigger than her pride. That's why she's still golden. Simone looked down. For the first time, she realized it wasn't Joan she hated. It was what Joan reflected, all the insecurities she had tried to bury. The next day, Joan's phone rang again. Simone's name appeared on the screen. David looked up from the kitchen island. Are you going to answer? Joan hesitated, then nodded. Yes. She pressed accept. Simone? A shaky breath on the other line. Joan, I don't even know why you're picking up after everything I said. Because holding grudges is exhausting, Joan said quietly. What do you want, Simone? I want to explain, and maybe heal. Could we meet? Joan's instinct was to say no, but something, compassion, curiosity, made her agree. 1 hour, the cafe on 5th, tomorrow. The next morning, Joan arrived early, seated by the window. Simone walked in, visibly nervous, eyes red from sleeplessness. She sat down. Silence hung heavy for a minute. "I know you hate me," Simone began. Joan shook her head. "No, I don't. I'm just tired of this cycle." Simone's eyes filled. "I thought if I hurt you first, I could control the pain I felt seeing you everywhere. Successful, adored. You became everything I wanted to be." Joan listened quietly. "You think this came easy? Every bit of grace I have came through pain, through learning to stand alone." Simone nodded. "I know. I see that now. And I'm sorry again. This time, not because I was caught, but because I'm finally growing up." Joan studied her, truly studied her. Beneath the polished surface was a woman unraveling, just as Joan once had been. "Then prove it," Joan said finally. "Do something good, for someone else. Use your voice to lift, not cut." Simone nodded, tears spilling. "I will." They sat for an hour more, not as rivals, not as socialites, but as two women learning that forgiveness is not weakness and jealousy not destiny. Months passed. The world moved on to new gossip, new glitter. Simone launched a charity initiative helping women recovering from public scandal, inspired by Joan. The first event? Co-hosted by Joan herself. At the opening ceremony, the press buzzed as the two women stood side by side. Cameras flashed. Joan took the microphone. "Redemption," she said, "is not granted by the world. It's chosen within ourselves. Simone and I are proof that enemies can become allies when both choose truth over pride." Simone nodded, emotion heavy in her gaze. The crowd erupted into applause. Mel, standing quietly at the back, smiled, proud, wistful. For the first time, all three had closure. Years later, Joan and David moved to a lakeside house in Virginia. Their days were peaceful, gardening, traveling, mentoring young women. One afternoon, Joan sat on her porch overlooking the lake reading letters from fans. One caught her eye. A young woman wrote, "I used to think aging meant fading, but you showed me it means shining differently. Thank you for proving that grace can roar." Joan smiled, tears warm in her eyes. She turned to David. "You know, sometimes I think the whole drama, even Simone, was necessary. Without it, I'd never have found my voice." David kissed her hand. "And without you, thousands wouldn't have found theirs." The sun set over the lake, gold and soft. At 70, Joan published a memoir, Golden, Not Perfect, My Journey Through Love, Light, and Second Chances. It became a bestseller. Simone wrote the foreword. To Joan, the woman who taught me that forgiveness is not weakness and grace is not performance. Thank you for seeing the good in me when I couldn't. At the book launch, the two women embraced on stage, tears streaming down their cheeks. The crowd rose in a standing ovation. And as flashbulbs popped and applause thundered, Joan whispered to Simone, "We're golden now, both of us." Simone laughed softly. "Finally." Joan turned to the audience, a sea of faces, and said her last words of the night. "In this life, we can either echo cruelty or amplify compassion. I choose compassion." Again and again.